Howdy folks, and welcome back to the Charger Do-Over. We're at episode 2 now. This is the third iteration of working on my 1969 Dodge Charger behind me. Now in the last episode we had gone through and detailed the backstory of this car. How did I get it? Where did it come from? What have we done to it since? Why did it sit for so long? And what are we doing to it now? So if you want to see all that, make sure you go in the top right now. There's a link in the description as well. There's a whole playlist on this car that details it from beginning to end and basically up to where we are right now. In the last video, we went through and told that story, but we also worked on fixing the floor pans in the car because they were so rotted out, a lot of rust, and then we went through, painted everything, seam sealed everything, made it look really nice, really clean on the inside. I'm very happy with how that turned out. And I thought it would be kind of fun after the video is to give away some pieces that you might see in the videos themselves. So last video, we had a lot of floor pans. We had a lot of stuff that got cut out. If you want original 1969 Dodge Charger sheet metal, as well as the one that come from my car, the stuff that I cut out specifically, all you gotta do is go down to the merch store, order anything at all. Doesn't matter what it is. From here to 7 days from now, we'll enter you automatically to win some pieces of sheet metal that I've signed and dated, as well as what you'll see at the end of this video that we're gonna give away. So I'm hoping that every Charger video, anything I replaced, anything I fixed, something along those lines, we're going to do a giveaway. All you gotta do is order some merch and that'll enter you to win automatically. We'll pick it randomly after 7 days and then we'll move on to the next one. If you don't wanna miss out on what we give away for this video, stick around to the end so you can see it. Speaking of this video, we've got a lot to tackle. This car, I don't know what I was doing back in 2018 and 2019, but it was weird. The whole harness is brand new. I went and bought a universal kit harness because I wanted it to be basically better than I could have possibly made it back in those days. I just really didn't know what I was doing, and I've never rewired a car from front to back until this car. This is a learning process, basically. Very first time I'd ever done it. Some places I did okay, some places I didn't do so hot. We're gonna go through and dive through all those things, and it is what it is. At least it's new, and at least most of the work is already done, but there's a lot of small things that I want to take care of and fix and make it better. You'll see the gauge cluster. That was a nightmare in itself. I mean, I can't believe I drove all this time with the gauge cluster and the switches and the harness exactly like it is because it's bad. I mean, I had electric cutouts wired in. Those didn't work. I had a tack in the gauge cluster, you'll see, that I left purposefully unhooked so that way I could pull it out and reach through the gauge cluster and change fuses because they kept popping. And the gauge panel itself was unscrewed so I could just yank it out of there and work on it because I worked on it a lot on Power Tour, and that's part of the reason why I just quit driving it because it was too much of a hassle. But we're gonna fix all that. We have so much stuff to do in this video. Stick around and hopefully you'll see a better Charger after all this. So I bought this panel. It was a pre-cut deal that somebody had made for a Charger, and I thought, well, it would work perfect. I bought these gauges off eBay because they were cheap, and they had a GPS speedometer. That's what I really liked about it. It's actually incredibly accurate. It's about a mile off, give or take, and there's a little sensor right here, so I really like that part about it. But I left it unbolted because of how much I had to take this thing off on Power Tour in 2019 because my wiring is absolutely hack. Let's take a look at it. This is, Dylan didn't know what he was doing. Why is there just a ground? What happened here? That's unplugged, that's broken. Ooh, yeah, that's not good. I think I'm going to see about trying to take all this loose and we're going to start fresh. I've actually got a decoded digital instrument cluster on the way. It's not here quite yet, but we can at least get some other stuff done wiring wise. Like, what is that? I just cut it. What is this for? Constant hot? And it's just here? Oh boy. This is worse than I thought, folks. These gauges worked some of the times. Sometimes the speedometer would read accurately, and sometimes it wouldn't even turn on at all. I need to mark all this, don't I? Does this have anything written on it? Right turn signal, yep. and left turn signal, and I went and got a GM headlight switch because that's what I could do it like for cheaply, and it worked. All I had to do was cut a hole in it. I don't need to lose all this though, so I'm going to be very careful when I take this off. So there's all the gauge cluster, headlight switch, which all that did work. I mean, the headlights, taillights, turn signals, everything worked. We'll put this up for a rainy day. You know, this is, well, it is what it is. Well, here's what's hiding in behind that instrument cluster. The fuse panel. For some reason, I put it right there. I knew that I was going to be pulling off those gauges so many times. I was like, you know what? Just mount it here. The good thing is, though, is that this is magnetic. I actually got these little magnetic pedestals because I didn't want to drill any holes, and this can actually come off. So the good news is we can relocate this. I want to put it somewhere else because I don't want to have to pull the gauge cluster to change fuses. That will be a nightmare. So we're going to take this, remove it, simple as that, and we will put this back somewhere else. So this is a Quick Wire brand fuse box. It had 22 circuits in it. It's really nice. It's labeled. It tells you everything that's going on with, you know, what wires go where. That says instrument group there. Each one's labeled. Super, super nice harness. And you can see I've got all these extra looms for stuff that I never did. I don't even know what half this stuff is. I just rolled it up and zip tied it together and then stuck it up inside the dash. This is a constant hot and then accessory hot, so that's just extra wire that it had. These are just more accessory wires for switches. All back in here, what is this? Oh, that's a big old loom right there. Power windows, oh heck yeah. Guess what we're getting? Power windows. I forgot that was even there. And this is accessory group B. Again, just a ton of extra wire that went to nowhere. So we're gonna fix a lot of this stuff in this video. I want to get everything that I want to get done besides the gauge cluster. So check this out. If you remember me talking about these dang power window switches, it was a nightmare. I would take and reverse the polarity on the power wires on the window switches themselves. I had all this. I had every single switch, all of it. The only thing that was broken was the passenger side switch. I think since I was planning on replacing all the wiring, I figured I don't need this old harness. I'm just going to remove it and get rid of it. Now what you see here is where I cut it, and then I just repaired it. So for some reason, I cut these wires. This is the only wires I cut out of this car. So I cut these three, but then I left it in the car, so it made no sense at all. So I repaired those three wires, and this door actually has a new power window motor. So what I did, made new connections here for the power. So I noticed that this thing looks so similar to a 1990 Ram Charger power window switch. So I plugged it in. Now, it doesn't work, but it needs to be there as a placeholder because power actually goes through the switch to go up into the power window motor. And then after that, all you need is a power wire going to our factory harness, which I made right here. And all this plugs back in. So this is now a keyed switch, and I've got the ignition switch out. So let me turn it over to accessory. And now when I do that, watch this. Which this window motor probably needs to be replaced. I didn't replace it, but over there on the other side where I did replace it, works very well. How cool is that? And that's what is really special about these SE Chargers is the fact you get power windows. Now, as far as the rears, I don't know if you can hear, but listen. It tries to roll down, but I think the track or something is stuck. So we're gonna have to take the door panels off anyway. When that happens, we'll dive into there and see what we can figure out. But that was as simple as it could be. I mean, all I had to do was just figure it out. Spend maybe an hour figuring this stuff out, and you can really achieve some greatness here. So, look at that. Power windows. That's so fun. I love that. Now, this was the first car I ever rewired completely. I've done little wiring jobs here and there, but I'd never actually fully rewired a car. So this was brand new to me. I had never done this process before. So doing all this stuff and actually going back, now that I know some more things, fixing all this stuff is going to be worthwhile and making sure this thing actually functions properly. And I'm excited. I love having power windows. How fun is that? Your 1969 Charger has operational windows now. It's great. Back whenever I did this car initially, I made sure to basically keep everything I took off. I didn't want to throw away anything, and that includes the original gauge cluster for the car. So I have all these switches. This is stuff that I ended up just making out of generic parts. Like you saw, the headlight switch is from a GM car from like the 90s, and it looks terrible. So my goal is take this all apart, get all of our switches out, make sure they work, because we've got a Dakota Digital RTX gauge cluster that we're gonna put all those switches back in. So once we make sure all this stuff is good, we'll have it ready to put back in the car and wire it up while we're at it. Because I don't have wipers, the washer does not work, it's not even there. There's no dome light, the headlight switch again was just goofy, no flashers. I want all that. Something interesting about these 68 and 69 Chargers is that the headlight doors are operated via vacuum. So that's what this is right here. As you roll the switch up and down, that little lever right there, that is going to switch where your vacuum source is doing. So if you get vacuum in, and then it'll switch it over, it's like, oh hey, open the headlights. Oh hey, look at there. Isn't that pretty cool? So kind of interesting that they would use vacuum, and 70 they're like, let's not do that anymore. And they switched to electric, which is what we're doing. But we've got the original gauge cluster. We're going to be using the dash panel. That's going to go back in the car. But this original cluster will not be reused because we're going with that Dakota Digital. We're not going to throw it away. We're going to leave this over to the side for maybe another project. And then the instrument panel is going to be reused and redone when the interior gets done. So we're going to set this aside as well. Here's where our main focus lies today. I want to make sure all these switches work, function properly, and will be usable when the time comes to actually put the gauge cluster in. So we're going to go through here one by one and test them out, see what they've got going on, take them apart if we need to. Up first is our headlight switch. So we've got two power sources down here on a hot battery with our power probe. You've got two different power inlets that you have to have for a source. You got one for the headlights and one for the parking lights. So currently our switch is off, but I have the power probe set up to where it will make a noise if we're getting power out. This is our headlight terminal. There's parking lights. All right, we're getting power there. We should be able to get power in the parking light position and the headlight position. So there's three parts of the switch. So this is off. I'm gonna switch to parking lights. Yep. Now I'm gonna switch to headlights. Getting power. So that means our headlight switch is completely good. So all we have to do, clean it up a little bit, make that switch look a little bit nicer, and it's ready to go. So this here is the instrument panel dimmer and the dome light switch. Cool thing about Dakota Digital is that they have their own auto dimming feature built into the headlight switch. So we really don't need this for the instrument panel, but we need this for the dome lights. Now, on the switches for the dome lights, inside the doors, they are hot. So all they need is a ground to work. So whenever the switches become open, when the doors open, they're grounded, immediately the dome light comes on. But this, in order for it to work, without having to use the doors to work it, you need a ground source to come out of here. So this wheel inside here was a little bit bent, a little dirty. I cleaned up the contacts on all ends, and now when we actually open this thing all the way, we see a ground. There you go. Look at that. On the other side, we do have power, so this is what's supposed to dim, and it works. You get 12 volts in the full on position, which it's supposed to, but this wheel right here is a little corroded. But again, the good news is we don't really need it. Here's the great thing about this harness that I put in this car. Every single wire is labeled. It's got the word on where it's supposed to go to. So we know where things are powered and where they should go. This is my original headlight switch. Again, this is some kind of GM unit. What I've done is gone through and found every single wire that I have already made a connection on and hooked it up to my original headlight switch here. So if it works, we should see some lights come on. Now obviously there are no headlights in the car, but what I do want to see if we're getting power out of the switch. All right, turning it to parking lights, and now to headlights. I see them come on in the reflection of the car in front of it. So that tells me, it works, awesome. Fun fact about this little turn signal here, it got down into the negatives one night out in the shop. I'm talking like -4, -5, which for around here is very, very cold. So I pointed a heater at this thing to try and keep the radiator from freezing, and I left it a little bit too long, and as you can see, it melted. So I've got to get a new one of those, but at least the turn signals are working, the marker lights that is, so that's good. Now we don't have headlights plugged in, but I've got a fix for that. To fix that problem, we've got Holley Retro Brights. These things are beautiful. They're basically an LED conversion kit that you get to convert these old classic muscle cars to a nice and brighter headlight. It comes with this little nice harness here you can make an adapter for, and as you can see, it's got a little LED light in the back. I had these on my Mustang and my Camaro, and these things are so bright. They work so good at night. I love them, and they just look really, really nice. So the cool thing about this is that they have like a blue, which is a kind of a cooler color, which is like your traditional LED, but they also have a warmer color, which is what these are. So you really don't give off the look that this is something aftermarket, and it's kind of not as obvious, and I like that. I really do. We've got 4 of these to plug in. Let's see what we can figure out. Here's the thing on these. You can plug them directly in. They have a 3-prong plug. I think mine is wired differently, or probably incorrectly, because I plugged it in and this is what happens. It only halfway works. I don't even know if you can see that on camera, to be honest with you. It doesn't really work that great. So I think something's wrong with my wiring, or I've wired it differently than what this headlight requires. And that is why you have these 3-prong harnesses. So you can adapt it to make it go to where you want it to. So just for testing purposes, I have used this little adapter harness, and I figured out I do have it wired differently than what this headlight comes with. So there you go. Now you can see it. It may be hard to tell on camera, but it's like a bright yellow. So it really kind of looks like a stock headlight. Look at there, now you can kind of see it reflecting off the car. See how it's not blue? It's kind of a warmer color. I like that because it looks original, but it's so much brighter than original. Now we are talking. Look at that. I'm gonna try and dim this down a little bit so you can kind of get the true color of it. Ooh, there, look at that. Now we're cooking. That looks so good. You can really see how yellow they are. They are incredibly bright compared to a regular halogen light. I love these. On the low beam, it was just a matter of flipping 2 wires, and the high beams plug right in. So super simple. I've got my trim rings here that I'm going to take and actually put the headlights in and mount them in properly. But I just wanted to show you guys, after getting these things done, how good they look. Unfortunately, one problem I did run into was my original headlight switch does not have the ability to power these LED headlights. Not sure why, but this is also an original unit. It could work with a halogen, I'm sure. It worked whenever I had just one light plugged in, but as soon as I plugged in that second one, it just couldn't handle it. It'll send 12 volts out whenever there's actually nothing on it, but as soon as you put some kind of load on it, it just immediately dropped to like 8 volts. It would turn them on, but it wouldn't work. Well, I took apart the headlight switch, as you can see here. There's all the guts from it. So we had a little bit of corrosion on the contacts here. It's really simple. There's a little ball bearing that rides against the switch itself, and then these 2 springs will hold contacts up against the different prongs. So I'm going to try my best to kind of clean up, because there's a little bit of corrosion here. They greased it, but it looks like there's some corrosion here. I'm going to spray that down and just hopefully get that clean. You can actually buy these new, but they're $50, and I just figured, hey, why not save a little money, spend just a little time, show you guys what I've done in the past. I really enjoy rebuilding these switches or just cleaning them up and making them better, and for no dollars, we can make it hopefully work. And if it doesn't work after this, then hey, that means we'll just buy us a new one. But never hurts to try, folks. Never, ever. I'll take these little prongs here. Let's clean these up. And this tiny little spring had some corrosion on it as well. So I'm going to be very careful not to lose this. It's a lot of tedious nitpicking stuff, but thankfully this headlight switch is really not that complicated. Not a whole lot of moving pieces. You just got to figure out what's wrong and what's right. I'm going to do a small dab of some lithium grease. This is a non-electrical part, but that actually is where that ball bearing rides. So we want to make sure that it actually will keep going. Put that bearing right there. I put the spring back in here. And that goes in like that. Now this spring goes in here, and this spring goes in here, and our 2 little connectors, and one goes there. All right, look at there. Sometimes it can be as simple as that, folks, so hopefully that fixes everything. I'm going to bend these tabs back over, get this lock back in place, and we'll see if something happens. Switch has been put back together. We've got everything plugged back in. Now for the moment of truth to see, did all this hard work pay off? Or was that just a waste of time? All right, parking lights, headlights. Oh, there we go. high beams, hey, low beams, high beams again, and low beams. There you go, folks. We've got the Holley retro brights in. Everything is screwed in. We just got to adjust them. Once we get this car off the lift, we can do that. But the high beams, the low beams work, all that good stuff. But out back, we also have tail lights. Now, whenever I actually did this car originally, I put the wrong tail light bulbs in the center. They use a different kind of bulb. I got to fix that because they're supposed to be look like they're on. Because right now the inside ones look like the brake light is on and the outside do not. So we have to put a different bulb in it. When you put the same bulbs in here, it looks like that. And I didn't realize that until somebody commented on my video years ago and told me I need to put the correct bulbs in there. So please don't let me forget that. Make sure you comment down below and let me know to change the dang taillight bulbs before I forget. We don't want to be going on power tour looking like we got the brake lights on when we actually don't. You want to see something else fun we did today? Notice how the dome light is actually sitting on the steering wheel there. Watch when I open the door. Oh, it works. Look at that. How awesome is that? So what I did, I had to wire in our switch here. It does have to be grounded to the gauge cluster, so it does not want to turn on the dome light right now. But when I close this, I push the button here, it goes back off. But whenever I turn the switch on, see how it's grounded? I have a little clip there. I'm gonna turn it all the way on, or shut off the door, and it still works. See there? So that means our switch is working. So if I turn the switch off, shut the door, aha! How fun is that? And look here, same thing happens on this side. I'm gonna push the button, light goes off. Fun stuff. Never had a dome light in this car before. That gets us just a few steps closer to getting this thing done. Now I want to make sure that we had enough room to put our dimmer switch in and our headlight switch in when we get our new gauge cluster. We should have enough wiring. I just want to get rid of this rat's nest. Ooh, is it bad? But it's just bundled up and zip tied together because that's just what I did. I mean, I did not do a good job with wiring it in the first place, but now is the time to correct things, make it better, and make it new again. You guys remember this car? Yeah, this is the crushed 1969 Charger that I have out here, and I kept it because I thought I might need some parts out of it, including the entire gauge cluster. Check that out. And it's got a nice center console. We might could. Oh, there's a bumper in there? I didn't even know that was in there. Heck. Well, cool. Well, I have everything I need as far as like center console, parts and pieces, and here's an extra instrument bezel. Oh, that's not wood grain. So I guess that's like the basic one, but the letters are embossed. I'm going to use this. Cool, okay. Because on the other one, it's got a wood grain decal and the letters are not embossed. But I wanted to paint it black and then figure out how to make the words work. So this was exactly what we're gonna use. Awesome, well, it's a good thing. See, you never throw anything away, guys. And we need probably this whole thing. What I had planned to do, I wanted to use the original plugs because, I mean, this car obviously, it's not gonna be a good car. It's obviously bad and it's got a lot of good parts in it. So what I wanna do is I'm planning on just unplugging what I don't need and then cutting everything else loose. I mean, that's all I know to do at this point. Look at there. Got an entire cluster right here. All these switches, I hope they work. That one's stuck. That one's stuck. Oh, that one works. Headlight switch, it's a 3-speed wiper switch. We might need to we got the plug on this side. I want to see if I can get the plug going to the car. Look at there. All this extra stuff, all these goodies. You can never have too many parts, folks. It is the gift that keeps on giving. Goodbye, convertible Charger. I appreciate you. Now to go work on my good one. And here's the reason why we cut all that out. We've got every plug now. I don't remember what I did with my Charger plugs or harness, but I don't have it. And unfortunately, I got rid of it. So here's what we got. This is the headlight switch plug. That's the wiper switch plug. This is a flasher switch plug. This is the dome light switch plug. And what I did was actually pull the bulkhead connector out of the car because one of the plugs goes into the wiper motor. So originally, it would have this one here stacked on top of that, I cut it loose. You can see I just took a little saw blade, cut it off there, and then ground it smooth around. So now all I have to do is plug directly back into that, because when I did this harness, I didn't use the bulkhead connector. And I know there's harnesses out there that do that now, but at the time, I didn't do it. So now it should be a whole lot easier. Instead of having to pin everything, and whenever you're trying to pull the dash apart, if you ever have to replace a switch or remove anything, you're removing 5-6 different wires per connector, and that just gets annoying and it gets old, because at the end of the day, you unplug everything, then you got to find every single wire and plug it right back in, or you could just pin it directly back into original factory plugs. That's the plan. So we have most of these working now, but all we have to do is just run our wires to these factory plugs instead. And if anything happens, we now have backup switches. And with that, our first order of business was to use our original plug on the hazard switch. You can see here, I've made all my connections, soldered them in, and did a little heat shrink on them. So now when we flip the switch on, listen here. Oh, but it gets better. Ooh, hazards in the front, hazards in the back. Look at that. Well, this is gonna take a while. I've got my wiper switch here. I've got the plug that I made right here, and then the original wiper motor over there with all the harness intact, but it's gonna be a lot. I've got a diagram pulled up on my phone. We're gonna attempt to do what we can to get this to work, but the 3-speed wiper switches, it's a lot, because you gotta figure out your park function, you gotta figure out the washer function, you gotta figure out making sure everything gets power, because sometimes it gets power here, sometimes it gets a ground here, and this whole switch functions all of that. So it's quite a lot. It's not just an on-off like you would hope it would be. So give me a second. I think I have it figured out. So I've got power right here. So whenever I turn the switch on to low, you probably can hear it, but you can't see it. Those wipers are moving right now. But when you go to speed 2, it's the same as high. So it's really just a low and a high. And then the park function, you got to hold the switch all the way down. So if I turn it off, it doesn't go back to park. But when I push the button down, if you get it just right, it'll work. So I think I need to take apart the switch, or even try the one that's in my other dash and just see if either one of them works better. I'm gonna put money on this one, because that one over there's been in the rain and the weather for 40 years, so I don't know. But at least it works. We know the motor works and everything's good. This is the one that came out of the convertible charger. Get in there. Plug this in here. Plug you into there. The odds of this thing working are slim to none, but we're gonna try it anyway. Oh, it does work. Kinda. You gotta hold the switch just right, but it only works on high. Okay, so that switch is no better. But it also could be part of my wiring is maybe janked up or something. I don't really know. We're gonna have to do a little more. Yeah, because it only works on high. Well, heck, this one is no better. So I guess I'm just gonna take apart my original one and clean it up. You know what, I'm pretty proud of how this charger's come along. We've got the headlights in. I mean, retro brights, dude, I'm telling you, they look so good. Everything is starting to come together. I have fixed so much stuff that I have wanted to fix for so long and never got around to it. All of our lights are functioning. I mean, the wipers, we gotta figure that out, but it's still happening. Things are working. We just got to get rid of this nest, man. I'm telling you, we're just evicting the rats that lived in the dash for a little while. I'm proud of it. I mean, that's a lot of tedious work that goes into this stuff that sometimes you just don't have time to finish when you're on a crunch and on a deadline, but it just makes sense whenever you can. Flashers, dome light, we've got headlights, everything is functioning. We've got original plugs now. We've got everything to be able to mount it in our dash properly. We're slowly working away and getting stuff set aside. Look, so there's a harness there, there's a harness there, there's a harness there. We'll be able to tie all this together and be able to unplug it, most importantly. That's the easy part. I love that. So once we get our new Dakota digital gauges, we'll be able to tackle this rat's nest. I want to put a radio in it. I don't even know what this is, but we're going to do it. It's all coming together, folks. And once we do the interior work, we'll have this thing done on the inside. And that is what's most important. I like driving stuff, so I want it to be comfortable on the inside and usable, most importantly. The wiper motor's working. The switch is obviously not great, but I'm starting to wonder if the motor itself is going out, because now it only works on high on both switches. I've got a backup 3-speed motor. We'll just see if we need to change it or not. Without further ado, folks, what are we giving away from this video? Well, let me show you. This right here. This is the headlight switch that I had in the car originally. Now, this is a GM headlight switch, and it still works. So heck, if you got a GM car and you want to put it in there, it'll do the trick. The reason I went with this one is because it's a really simple design. It's a simple, you bolt it through the panel and then it tightens up to it. And if you ever want to take it out, you pull the headlight switch, there's a button here, and the whole thing comes apart. Doesn't look right, of course, because it's a 69 Charger. And the thing is, it had the little headlight emblem on the front, and I thought that I could just take that off with a wire wheel because I didn't want it to be obvious, and well, it ground out the button. So it's been like that for quite a long time now, but I signed it as well. So if you order anything from the website from here to 7 days from now, this may be yours. So this rode in this car for basically as long as I've had it, and it is part of the car. I think of it just as much as part of the car as the original headlight switch, because I use this thing constantly. Turning the headlights on, turn them off. This is what's being given away on this car for this video. And if you want to see other giveaways, make sure you tune in for following videos, because you don't want to miss out. I mean, we're going to continue to do this every single time we have an update on this Charger. So guys, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like down below. If you have a question for me, feel free to leave a comment, order your t-shirts and your stickers, and we're going to continue to work on this car. Make it all the way to Holly Mo Party. Make it all the way to Hot Rod Power Tour. We're going to drive this car no matter what. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.